You're listening to the Seahawks Insiders, getting you ready for Seahawks football every Sunday. Presented by Delta, the official airline of the Seahawks. Now, here's your host, Jen Mueller.
Do you feel that vibe around the facility, John?
It's very vibey.
It's very vibey, much like Eric Saubert. That is exactly how.
What was the word? Vibery?
Vibery? It was one of the two.
It's definitely a made-up version of the word vibe that Cooper Kupp used last week.
To talk about Eayrs Impact.
Yeah.
And it's true. He is. I think you are that. I think everybody in the facility is that this week because it is a Thursday night primetime game. It is the game that we have had circled. I would say even before the year started, you knew this was going to be a big one, but especially after the game in L.A., all we heard from those guys, John, going into the locker room, yeah, they were disappointed that they didn't come away with the win. They were right there on the doorstep despite not playing the best football on offense. Every single one of them going into the locker room said, just wait a few weeks. Just wait a few weeks. Let's get them at our place. We got this.
Yeah, there was zero panic in that game. And I think that's because, A, like any season, there's a lot that can happen, and they knew that they'd get their chance at it. But B, this was not a loss where you felt like, oh, man, they're just better than us. They beat us up on the line of scrimmage. Like, that was a game where statistically the Seahawks were better in so many areas, but obviously you can't turn the ball over in a big game, and they turned it over 4 times, and that really was the difference in the game. But otherwise, they outplayed the Rams in a lot of facets of that game.
Well, if I just showed you the box score without the final score, you would have guessed the final score was flip-flopped on that one for sure. And when you go back and take a look, and the Rams offense, we already know what to expect on that front. But Matthew Stafford threw for the fewest yards that he has thrown for all year. Meanwhile, the Seahawks put up the most yards against that defense than any opponent this year. Time of possession, that was in the Seahawks' favor. So was third down conversions. There were so many good things. You do just think, okay, you know what the game plan is. Just go execute the game plan.
Yeah, just be a little better with the ball, and also red zone. The two big areas that the Rams won, and to their credit, those are two of the most important things in football, is turnover and red zone, and that was enough. That and the greatest punt we'll ever see were enough to help them win that game. But yeah, nobody from the Seahawks side, nobody came out of the game thinking like, oh, that's a better team than us. It was just like, we didn't get the job done. Let's take care of business until then and see them again. And that's exactly what's happened. They haven't lost since, and they're putting themselves in a great position to hopefully take care of business.
Well, and I think that kind of goes to when you think about taking care of the football, I do think that explains some of Sam Darnold's numbers the last few weeks. Less explosive on some of those plays, but more sure with the football. I also think it is what happens on the opening drive in the first quarter, because the Seahawks haven't scored a touchdown in the first quarter in the last 3 games, and it certainly looks like slow starts. I will point out, Colts defense is pretty good.
Yeah.
Like that's
a legit defense.
That is a legit
especially
defense.
They're really, I think they lead the league in yards per carry allowed. They're really good run defense, and the Seahawks were trying to get that run game going and didn't have a lot of success. That's something we've heard Clint Kubiak and Mike McDonald both reference this week. Like they got to be better there. But yeah, it's a lot of factors go into that. They do want to start better and need to, but field position's been a big part of that too lately. They've had some of these early game drives where they kick off, the opponent starts at the 30-some yard line. You move the ball even a little, you got a good chance to pin a team deep. And we saw in Minnesota when they started that drive, that game, and then this last week they were inside the 20.
Well, yes. And for so many years with Pete Carroll, you knew that if they won the toss, they were going to defer. I was thinking about this morning, right? Because it kind of goes into you can't win the game in the first quarter, the second quarter, but you can win the game in the fourth quarter, right?
Possession. Yeah.
Mike McDonald and his crew look at it differently, and it's not a set call every week. Like it is accounting for a lot of different factors in the game. So I never really know what they're going to call. But it is interesting because I'm pretty sure the Seahawks won and deferred on Sunday.
They lost, and the Colts deferred this last time. Or no, the Colts took the ball.
Yeah.
The week before the Seahawks won and deferred. But yeah, they've started on defense the last couple games.
Right. And so I wonder, and you love that as a tone setter, right? Like, I understand why you would want to do that. And this team is really good at making second half adjustments. So getting that ball first in the third quarter is interesting. I just wonder, especially with weather playing a factor, if they might flip it around. Here's what I know they're doing for sure. They are evaluating how they start games and what they script in the first quarter.
I think this is one of those, like, results versus process thing. Yeah, we're not getting the results we want. Can't just say let's start better. Like let's go back to see, how we're doing our openers, how much we're carrying, what we feel like the guys can execute at a high level. How do we diagnose what their game plan is as soon as we possibly can? I mean, there's a lot of things going on there, and that's on the table right now. We're working through it, just like any other thing that's happened that is kind of falling short to the standard that we want to achieve, and we're working through it. So, but I think there's some things on the process end that will yield better results.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't, you don't. To Mike's point, like, it's about the process of how they're doing things. Like, you don't reinvent the wheel in week 16 and just, our offense can't get started. Like, you can't scrap things and start over. It's just like they just got to clean up some little things. Clinton said sometimes that's on him putting, bad play calls. I mean, it's really easy to look at, like, the totality of things and be like, what a disaster. But it's like you go back and watch games like, man, just that one play. It's like one penalty or one run that gets hit in the backfield can just change the whole tone of a drive. So it's not huge fixes. It's just clean up a few little things, and I think we could see this offense get back on track because, look, over the course of the season, their body work is really impressive. And look at the explosives, the scoring. Like, this offense has done a lot of really good things. And even, last week was tougher, but even these other games where they're starting slow, they're picking it up in the second half.
Well, and I do want to point out, Mike McDonald actually said on Sunday, I'm really proud of the way we won that game. You're going to have to win games in all sorts of different ways down the stretch. We just proved that we could win that game. And I know everybody's kind of projecting that it was going to look different. When I walked over to the Colts sideline and I was talking to some of those folks, particularly their sideline reporter, and everything was, oh my gosh, isn't this great? Phillip Rivers is back. And I know that you can laugh at it on one hand and say, 44-year-old
make all the grandpa jokes.
He provided such a spark to that team.
That gave them some juice for
They
sure.
were so amped up to go play well for him, and with that addition, I don't think you can overlook that, right? And so there's no asterisk on any W at the end of the year. You just know that it was a W. And this team looks different than the last time when they played the Rams. You are at full strength on defense. We'll get to defense in just a second. But you also have Rashid Shaheed, who has come up with really big plays in the last couple of weeks thanks to more reps.
Yeah, I think Shaheed, first of all, when he first got in here, he's been doing an incredible job just learning the system, doing everything that he can to, just to obviously learn the system, but learn how I see things. And then if he sees things as well in a different way, we're just constantly communicating. And I think that's the best part about Shaheed is he's always willing to communicate and have those conversations.
Yeah, Shaheed was with the Seahawks for that first Ram games, but he'd been with the team for a week and a half, and he was just not fully, into the offense at that point. First few games with the Seahawks, he had, 4 catches through his first 4 games, I believe. He has 9 catches for 141 yards the last 2 weeks. Like, he is suddenly becoming a real playmaker. Obviously, had the 2 big catches on that game-winning drive. Made some big plays down the stretch the week before as well. Like, he's gone from being, when's this guy gonna kind of pop and when are we gonna see it? To no, he's making a big difference in victories here. Obviously, the kick return 2 weeks ago was a big part of that as well. So yeah, now we're really getting a good sense of why they want to go out and get this guy.
I was talking to a couple of guys in the locker room last week and just trying to ask, hey, how's it going? How are you getting used to things? Because there's a lot of guys that change on the roster, especially the bottom half of this bottom quarter of this roster, right? And a couple of them said, we're doing the best we can, and we're asking for extra meetings. But the fact of the matter is they can't go backwards to bring us up to speed, right? Like, that's what training camp and OTAs are for. Once you get into this part of the season, you are in install mode. And it's not that they're not helpful, but there's only so much you can do to bring a guy up to speed. It really does come down to how much time do you have together on the field? How much time do you have in those big moments? Going to Shaheed in those couple of throws down the stretch in that final drive, I think that shows you exactly where that chemistry is.
Yeah,
right?
and that in particular, all those different things, like you said, you need the time, but that quarterback-receiver relationship in particular is one so reliant on chemistry. Because, look, if you're not on the same page, it can make a quarterback look really bad. Like, if the receiver just does something a little wrong, you're all of a sudden throwing it right to a defensive back. So that takes time to develop. We've seen there's been times those two are thrown off to the side of practice. just getting those extra routes, getting those extra throws in, and it's really starting to show again these last 2 games. And I think, down the stretch and into the playoffs, that's going to be huge for the Seahawks.
Well, and we talk about how that game ended, and Rashid Shaheed gets a lot of credit. So does Jason Myers for kicking 6 field goals in a game. I am so glad that Brian Eayrs gets some credit for that one. And quite honestly, the clock management of Coach, which I think has been pretty phenomenal for his entire tenure here. But as you're watching it, you can start to think along with, okay, this is where they're going with this. And while you'd think about saving those timeouts, it was masterful, the way that they did that. And I guess the trust you have on your offense to execute without any timeouts and what you're going to do. But I am so glad that Brian Eayrs, one of the typically unsung heroes, gets a lot of credit this week.
I mean, he came very well, or very highly recommended by John and everybody else in the building. So, that obviously carries a lot of weight. And then as you get to know him, and just like I'd say, what I said to the team yesterday is talking about chasing edges. Is just really that mentality that you have to have in that position. And it's just really clear really early that was his mentality about how he wanted to approach these things. It's a job that he hasn't necessarily had the full scope of that responsibility before, and he just really attacked it. And from my perspective, that's all. When you try to give people responsibility, that's what I'm looking for. Is what's the attitude? Are we really just diving deep and trying to make it come to life the best we can to help the team in any aspect? You name the job, that's what we're looking for. And Brian's been a great example of how to attack it and make it his own, add his personality to it, his own flavor, and he's just done a great job.
Yeah, for those who don't know Brian or know about him, it's great to see him get a little love. He's a guy that's been here. Pete Carroll brought him in 2013 when he was kind of looking to get into the analytics a little more. And kind of a fun backstory, Mike Eayrs, who worked for a long time for both the Vikings and Packers, was considered sort of the father of football analytics. And Pete Carroll reached out to Mike Eayrs because he was partly responsible for bringing him to the Vikings in the 80s, asked him if he wanted to come to Seattle, and he wouldn't leave his job. But he said, hey, my son's getting into this too. And so a young Brian Eayrs came out here over a decade ago. And, his role's grown and expanded, as Mike alluded to there. He's doing more than ever in terms of all that game day. He's the guy helping decide, do you throw a challenge flag here? Clock management, as you said, 4th down decisions, so many big decisions the coach has to make. Mike McDonald is really trusting Brian to do that. And it's cool to see because the question I asked him was this isn't a guy you knew. You had no relationship with him. You didn't bring him with you. You're putting a lot of trust in this guy. And he is, as Mike said in that clip, it's, a lot of that came from John Schneider, knowing the guy, really trusting him, recommending him. And it's, you just love seeing there's so many guys behind the scenes in this sport that make it all go. And it's fun when they get that recognition. Mike gave Brian a game ball after the game. So it's all really cool to see.
Well, and Brian has, first of all, he is always smiling. He is
nicest
so
guy.
low-key.
The nicest guy.
I would love to hear him on the headsets on game day because I can't imagine that he would ever yell or shout. I just imagine this very calm voice, saying challenge, don't challenge. He's also the guy that studies the tendencies of officiating crews so that they can have the correct coaching points of emphasis during the course of the week. And we actually had an exchange on LinkedIn earlier this year. I had posted something and he said, hey, Jen, if you want a really cool book to read, here's the best one I've read on how to measure intangibles, and it's called How to Measure Anything, Finding the Value in Intangibles. Those are the sorts of books that Brian Eayrs is reading. I haven't read it yet. Don't ask me how I'm supposed to measure it because it all feels a little bit mind-blowing to me. But it really is cool to see Brian getting that credit. And it is an awful lot to manage. If you are the head coach of an NFL team, if you are managing your own fantasy football team, there's a lot going on now, too.
Big time of year.
Playoff times. Scott Ingles has you covered.
Thanks, Jen and John. We're in Week 16. It's the second round of the fantasy playoffs. Don't overthink things. Go with the guys who've gotten you this far, and we'll give you a few if you're facing tough lineup decisions in the second round of the fantasy playoffs. At quarterback, we're going to start with Brock Purdy going against the Indianapolis Colts. Purdy has come off a 3-touchdown game. He's looking good, and he'll give you a good fantasy floor. Also, Jacoby Brissett, who has proven to be a solid fantasy quarterback late in the season. He's going against the Atlanta Falcons. They rank 21st in fantasy points per game allowed to opposing quarterbacks over the last 4 weeks. At running backs, let's stick with rookies. Quinshon Judkins to bounce back for the Cleveland Browns against the Buffalo Bills, which have been a great matchup for fantasy running backs all year long. Also, Amarian Hampton is healthy, and the Chargers are going to want to play ball control a lot against the Dallas Cowboys. Expect him to get a lot of work and be a good fantasy producer. At wide receiver, go with DK Metcalf. The Steelers face the Lions. It should be a high-scoring game, which means a lot of opportunities for Metcalf. And in the big game between the Seahawks and the Rams, go with Rasheed Shaheed. He's really been getting involved more in the offense over the last 2 weeks, and he will be a key player in a huge game for the Seahawks on Thursday Night Football. Also, at tight end, go with Darren Waller. He's coming off a big game. He will continue to be a significant part of the Miami offense. They go against the Bengals. The Bengals have been the best matchup for fantasy tight ends all season long. For more from me, go to News Fantasy Insider on the Seahawks.com tabs. You'll see news, then go to Fantasy Insider, more tips for Week 16, and also rotoballer.com for all my rankings and lineup spotlights. Back to you, Jen and John, for Week 16, Seahawks-Rams.
Thank you, Scott. Before we go any further, let's pause for a word from our presenting sponsor.
Delta Airlines is bringing more big wins to the city of Seattle. With nonstop flights to over 60 destinations worldwide, we're moving Seattle forward with 2 new routes to Rome and Barcelona starting May 2026. And with thoughtfully designed cabins, premium service, a seamless travel experience, and our new Delta One Lounge for eligible travelers, your personal off-season is looking better than ever. Visit Delta.com to book your next trip.
And the Rams, it is going to be a showdown. It is going to be a chess match. And one of the things we talked to the defensive coordinator about this week is the success, as we mentioned, that the defense had against the Rams in the first matchup. And what AD said was, you know that the Rams have answers for everything. There is nothing that we can throw at them that they haven't already seen. And so you really just kind of have to take this all the way back down and prepare as if, right, nothing ever happened. As if they didn't, limit Matthew Stafford and a really explosive offense.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't, if you go into this game being like, well, we really shut them down, we're good. Let's just go with what we did last time. Like, Sean McVay is going to have wrinkles for you. They're going to adjust, and they're just, quite frankly, too good to just assume that success will come. So, yeah, both these coaching staffs have their work cut out this week. As much as Mike wants to downplay it, I love this, chess match between McVay and McDonald. They're just two of the smartest guys in the world at what they do. So, yeah, I mean, you got to kind of just start over every week to some degree and use the background you have, but know they're going to have wrinkles for you.
But you also are at full strength this time.
Yeah.
You've got Jaron Reed. You've got Julian Love back. Yep. You've got a more experienced crew in the middle because of all of the reps that you've got. You added Riley Mills last week, so you've got another piece there.
Nick Gibson Warrior's getting better every week. I feel like the version you get of him every 2 weeks is better than the one you saw before. So
I do think that there is something about where this defense is now compared to where it was in the first matchup. And the guy we might not be talking about enough, well, it's Byron Murphy. In fact, we didn't even ask about him on Monday, but Coach brought the conversation back around.
I'll tell you what, Byron Murphy, this isn't your question, but Byron Murphy played a tremendous football game. He was absolutely dominant, probably single-handedly won us the football game on defense. I mean, he absolutely played lights out.
You know that a guy's playing well when Mike, no one asked about Byron Murphy. No. That was not hey, how'd Byron play? Or totally, I think the question was something about the pass rush, or I don't know what it was. And he just detoured to be no, I need to tell you guys how good Byron Murphy was. And yeah, I mean, that guy is what we all talked about in the offseason of solid rookie year, but the numbers weren't what people were expecting. And every player and coach you talked to this summer was man, he's going to be so good, breakout year, all this stuff. And he's doing it. I mean, he's one of the best interior linemen in the league by any measure. He's also one of the leading Pro Bowl vote getters. So hopefully he gets that recognition this year when the Pro Bowl teams come out. But yeah, really cool to see him emerge into the player the Seahawks really thought they were getting when they picked him in the first round.
Everybody that talks about Byron Murphy, who knows anything about that position, says that he is if not the most technically sound, one of the most technically sound players that they have ever seen. I would imagine you have to be at that position. You are constantly eating up double teams. You cannot rely just on physical strength because you get 2 300-pound guys pushing on you. Like, you're going to fall over at some point. But truly, I need to spend more time watching to see how he does this, how he drops to a knee, how he fends off 2 defenders and still can get up and make plays down the field.
Yeah, I mean, he's a special player. I liked when Aiden Dirty was asked about that. I was like, that's not something many coaches teach, that like go down to a knee technique. But as he's said a few times over the years, like some guys can do it and some can't. And if they can and it works for them, you let them do it. But yeah, that combination, as you said, the technician, just the athlete he is, and then the competitor he is, like he's putting a really good season together.
Here's what else I liked that Aiden Dirty was talking about this week is the number of chances to affect the game by the pass rush. So when you look at Phillip Rivers and how quickly he was getting the ball out, there just weren't that many chances, right? That is the pass rush, okay? So it doesn't show up in the stats that way, but that's the pass rush. And then he said, because of that, you only create 2 or 3 opportunities in the game, and those guys didn't miss.
Yeah.
And the reason they didn't miss was, and I never stopped to think about this, right? But if you were always forcing the issue and the ball's coming out fast, then the few times that it doesn't, you're thinking, that ball's coming out fast. Why am I even charging the quarterback?
Yeah, you
right?
kind of like it can be natural to let down, but like what's the point? He's just going to throw it in 2 seconds.
Right. And the fact that they didn't says something about where this defense is. I think it's also really important against Matthew Stafford because he's one of those guys. I mean, not the same age as Phillip Rivers, same experience level, same ability to get the ball out. Might be without Devontae Adams this week, right? Kind of looking that way. I thought that was a really interesting point because you're going to need to play fast. Yeah,
it was because AD was asked about that. And like statistically, that doesn't look like a very good pass rush game. I think they had like 3 or 4 quarterback hits. The sacks were, because Phillip Rivers fell down one time and a snap went over his head another time. So it's like you weren't really able to get to him because he got the ball out so fast. But AD said to us, he's like, I think that was one of our best games. And it was, like you said, like guys just kept fighting for those opportunities even when they weren't there. And so the few times they could get to him and get those quarterback hits and hurry him up, they did so. So, yeah, I mean, another great test for pass rush in terms of a quarterback who knows darn well what he's doing back there. And, hopefully they can affect him a little bit.
Okay, so on the other side, before we get to 2 things that we need to see for a Seahawks win, Sam Darnold was very complimentary of Chris Schula, the defensive coordinator for the Rams. Again, the numbers, the first matchup makes it feel like Seattle knows exactly what to expect. Here's what Sam Darnold is thinking heading into Thursday night.
He just does a really good job, of getting all 11 kind of glued into the same mindset. Rush and coverage all working together and, doing a really good job of like I said, just all the DBs being, on a string together with the coverages, and then the defensive line as well, just working their butts off to get to the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, give that defense a lot of credit. Like, they were doing things coverage-wise that Sam Darnold told us after that last game. It's like some things that, got him a little mixed up, and that's what, my words, not his, but that's like what led to those interceptions. It's like guys make plays where you're not expecting them to be with what you see from that coverage look. So, yeah, what they're doing there, what Shula's doing is a really good scheme, and this is going to be a really good test both for Sam but also for Clint Kubiak to have good answers to it.
Yeah, and it was interesting because Sam said the thing he has to avoid this week is overthinking it.
Yeah.
Don't overthink, don't overprepare, get the actual sleep you need. I think AD was saying the same thing on the defensive side. Like, don't overload people.
Yeah.
Just make them go play fast,
yeah,
right? Just put them in a position to play fast.
Like, this is a week about putting guys in position to play fast and decisive because you can't. It's such a short week. You can't get as much in. There's no way. So you got to kind of get by with what you can.
That leads us right into the 2 things that we need to see for a Seahawks win right after a word from our presenting sponsor.
Take your own off-season with Delta Airlines and explore new routes from Seattle to Rome and Barcelona starting May 2026. Plus, with nonstop flights to over 60 destinations worldwide, Delta is moving Seattle forward one adventure at a time.
Okay, John, I'm going to take the same approach the Seahawks are taking. I'm not going to overthink this.
Yep.
We're just going to play fast. Here are the two things I need to see.
Go for it.
Stay out of your own way, which means no silly penalties. We've seen too many of those that are very preventable the last couple of weeks. Don't turn the ball over.
Yep.
And on defense, just finish those plays. I'm not even going to give you numbers. Like, just finish the plays, make the tackle, just play fast. Is that okay? Can I do that on a short week?
Yes.
Can I not
it.
overthink this?
I love it.
Okay. What are you going to say then?
I mean, you took turnovers, which is clearly the most obvious one. So I'll take the other big one for this offense, which is red zone. Like, look, we love Jason Myers. I don't really love that he's on pace to break the all-time or the single-season field goals record. Because, again, good for him.
Catch-22.
But that means, it's like Crash Davis breaking the minor league home run record. Like, it's kind of a dubious achievement. You want to be finishing in the. That's an older reference for some of you, but go watch Bull Durham. Great movie. You want to be finishing those drives in the end zone. They were 1 for 4 in the red zone in the last game against the Rams, and really, the last month going back to that game, that's kind of been an issue for this offense. So I would love to see them, and if they can do it early, that'd be even better. Go march down the field, first quarter drive, punch it in, just kind of set a tone of like, hey, this offense has found some stuff.
Get the crowd behind that defense.
Yeah, and then other side of it, I want to stop the run. Look, Stafford's having an awesome season. He's probably the MVP as things stand with 3 games left. But their run game, I think because of Stafford and Puka Nacua and Adams, people sleep on that run game a little bit, but it is, you look at some of the efficiency numbers, it's one of the best in the NFL, and they had some success. They gashed Seahawks in the first half before some adjustments were made. So shut that run game down.
Hard to believe we were talking about possibly the demise of Matthew Stafford and a back injury before the season started.
It was like
we were like, he's not even going to be able to play this
he's
year.
Not practicing. They got that weird truck there that he's like going and like remember.
Wait,
like,
what?
He had like a trailer.
He had a weird truck he was going into.
He had like a trailer that was like some sort of, I don't know if it was like a, I don't know.
Well, now I'm going to have to go.
No, they had like some special trailer there that he's getting some treatment done, and it was. This talk of like, is he even going to play this year?
Right.
And now he's having the best year of his career. He's a really good player, man.
Truck. I know. We're going to go on a deep dive. We'll have that be our closing note.
I'm going to look this up
everybody.
and make you know I'm not crazy, and we'll talk about it next week.
I think that's a great idea. That is the next time we will see you for another edition of the Seahawks Insiders Podcast.